It's a fact that he declined to vote on a bill appropriating money for aircraft, missiles, naval vessels, and tracked combat vehicles. It's a fact that he refused to voice Alabama's position on 4 Defense Department appropriations bills, one of which allowed a roughly $550 million slash in American defense funds. And it's a fact that my opponent did not see the importance of a bill making it a federal crime to aid foreign powers or groups engaged in armed conflict with the United States. And he says he voted on the major issues, yet he missed numerous critical defense votes. Apparently, national defense is not an important issue to my opponent, and I find that troubling. Right now, the United States is in the process of negotiating one of the most significant arms treaties in history, a proposal that's going to affect the defense posture of this country for decades. We have to have a treaty that guarantees American defense strength and reverses the Soviets' mad dash toward military superiority.
The fire situation up there is extremely hazardous. Most of the fires that are burning now are in the Shelby County area. There appears to be several miles of fire line in Shelby County that has not been contained at this point. There's also one fire just immediately north of Leeds, which looks like it's going to take considerable time to get under control. The basic problem we're having, of course, is a result of an extended dry period here in Alabama. We're about 10 inches deficient in rainfall right now in this calendar year. It appears that if we don't have any rainfall in the near future, that we will continue to have these problems, and the fires could very well get to the point where they would be completely beyond our control capabilities. The extended forecast for today and through the weekend is for no rain. We have a front just moved into Alabama around Birmingham. It has dissipated in place. There's absolutely no rainfall with it. The winds are beginning to pick up considerably behind this front, and we're expecting burning conditions to become much more severe in the next few days. I just called the district dispatcher on the way in, and it seems that they have 3 fires going currently in Macon County. Lowndes County has had 2 fires today. One has been reported and extinguished in Russell, and Montgomery County has had 1 fire. That's in this immediate district.
Are we in a very serious situation right now in the state?
We are in a very hazardous situation from the build-up potential. The actual fire starts are not that great at this point. I guess we could say the situation is severe, but it's not catastrophic. It is controllable at this particular time.
Somehow or another, we are spending a tremendous amount of money on political races. And I feel that in my own mind, in some way or another, that this ought to be curbed, and we ought to be able to have campaigns without spending all the amount of money that is necessary to present to the people the views of the various candidates on the media. Then I think as I look on the campaign, I see something I think it is, to me, very evident, is that race is no longer an issue in a political arena here in Alabama. The black organizations were solicited by practically every candidate for governor, every candidate for the United States Senate, every candidate for attorney general, lieutenant governor, and so on down. This is different from the way it was a few years ago. And I do not believe that the endorsement of black organizations caused a backlash. I do not think that the black organizations presented a solid black front. The blacks are voting just like any other individual. They're voting individually. There are a number that vote together, but at the same time, there are different organizations.
There will be times when we'll have to demonstrate again. Demonstrations still have a place. But I think Mr. Joe Reed can tell you, if you don't understand the system, if you don't know how to operate in the political system, then you don't get what you want. The name of the game. But don't get in there and get corrupt like some of our folk. Got to keep the spirit of love and nonviolence and integrity and high moral purpose. We see some examples of that today, and the young. And I would add President Carter. I would add President Carter. For the first time, we have a president who's not afraid to say, I believe in God, and talks about his religion and the fact that he reads the Bible every night, and he's not just a Bible-reading man who doesn't affect his heart. The man has a heart.
The coalition believes that the ultimate blame for the continuous problems at Alabama State University is the Board of Trustees. In light of a recent audit released by the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, citing the school in error in reporting a non-credit course as a credit course, and the recent decision to settle a $208,000 discrimination suit out of court, Coalition spokesman Percy King says it's time for the trustee board to begin living up to its responsibilities.
It seems to me and to our group that they have taken a laissez-faire type attitude toward the problems, and therefore they have not taken an in-depth look at the situation. And I feel that this would be the only way that we can resolve some of the difficulties that we have had over there.
Well, is the coalition able to contact the Board of Trustees in any way and have some kind of communication toward the problems?
We have communicated with them in the past. And, of course, we have not done so in the last month or two, but we do communicate with them, and we have been given a lot of promises that they will take an in-depth look. But so far, no visible evidence has been shown yet that they have taken a look at the situation. And we are really concerned about it because a lot of taxpayers' money is being squandered in this situation. We feel a lot of the problems could have been solved long time ago.
According to the coalition, ASU has not filed proper and accurate annual financial reports with the legislature as required by the state. They say the reports that were filed were too general to evaluate the proper utilization of funds. Janet May, WSFA TV News.
The battle for this seat is being fought by Don Harrison, the Democratic nominee, and Republican Bob Allen. Both are campaigning in the three-county Senate district that is comprised of Crenshaw, Elmore, and Montgomery counties. Republican Allen is 41 years old. This is his second political race after losing a 1976 Public Service Commission campaign to Democrat Juanita McDaniel. Allen is a practicing attorney, and he says the main issue in the race is the special interest support being given to his opponent.
Mr. Harrison won the primary by accusing his opponent of being controlled by AEA, a special interest group, and now he's received thousands of dollars and much support from Farm Bureau. So we're exchanging, if we elect Harrison, one special interest control for another.
In his first political race, 31-year-old lawyer Don Harrison whipped incumbent Democrat Jerry Powell in the Democratic primaries. And now he says a Republican would not be effective in the Alabama Senate. The Democratic nominee says Allen would have a tough time getting cooperation from the Democratic majority.
There's a Democratic governor and a Democratic lieutenant governor, and in order for the people of District 26 to have strong, thorough, and effective representation in the Senate to get the kind of things that the people of District 26 want, they need a Democratic. They need me, Don Harrison, who will be able to get good committee assignments from the lieutenant governor and the governor, and be able to work with the lieutenant governor and the governor to get some things done which my opponent will not be able to do.
Voters in the 26th Senate District now have 15 days in which to decide between Allen and Harrison, and both candidates say they will campaign till the last minute to become a member of the Alabama Senate. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News in the Alabama Senate Chamber.
community, a high school, and that when that person goes home, you have a tremendous potential for a ripple effect. The answers their question, they get another crack at you. And you better answer it right the first time. Because they have absolutely okay. I would imagine it would be to the Montgomery JCs. Is that correct, Joe? When you come right down to it, what is it about? We are trying to do basically preventive medicine. I feel very sincerely, one of the reasons that I started this is that there are enough people sending delinquents to camp. I think it's about time we pat the good kid on the back and let him know that there are rewards for being a responsible member of the community. And it's like anything else. If you show them that there are rewards, and if you reach out to them instead of preaching to the choir all the time, and reach out to young people at an age when they can do something about it and say, hey, you do have something to say, and you're going to take my seat somewhere down the line. If you give them a chance, let their voice be heard, they are going to eventually be, involved in politics, in business, in the bank, the local bank, whatever the college or wherever they're going to be going to. Let them know the practical side of what it takes to make a buck. Let them know the practical side of why we have such a word as politics. Let them have an understanding, the humanization and the understanding and the appreciation, not only of our economic system, but of our democratic process. Now, I've traveled all over the damn world. Every place in this world, I've been all over. I've been to Russia, I've been every place, and I can tell you, we may have some problems in our system, but this is the best system to come down the pike. We have the ability to change it. These are the young people, if they're going to be changes, they're the ones that are going to be responsible for it. They're the ones that have inherited the awesome burden of carrying it on from here.
The lions were being kept by Ricky and Margaret Haney only temporarily. A cage was being constructed at the Montgomery Zoo to house them. There were no witnesses, so it's not known why the female African lion attacked Mrs. Haney.
It appeared that she'd gone out to the restroom and was on the way back when she was jumped by this lion. The direction of the cable, the chain there, and the direction of the broken parts of the chain indicated the lion went straight out and broke the chain.
We don't know if the animal was trying to play or if Margaret might have, accidentally walked too close and frightened the lion and she attacked. Chances are the lion was probably trying to play, but they played pretty rough. Now, I don't know if it attacked her from the front or from the back, but I'm sure that when the lion attacked, Margaret felt nothing. She probably didn't even know what happened to her.
The victim's husband says they had only owned the lion 4 days. Haney says neither he nor his wife had ever ventured that close to them until today. Dave Rickey for CBS News near Friendship, Alabama.
You know where they are?
They're
Bob Bino and Larry Dixon want to represent District 81 in the Alabama House of Representatives. Dixon, the Democratic candidate, spent the last 3.5 years as a member of the Montgomery City Council representing District 7. Dixon describes House District 81 as an enlarged version of District 7, where his constituents are the wealthy, the middle and upper class, and those in the pockets of poverty. Dixon, who admits to being a conservative, says his decisions are determined by the number of people they affect.
I think the people in House District 81 have reached the point where they realize that they've just about bought all the government they can afford. They're concerned about their pocketbooks. They have been tapped and tapped and tapped again. I'm talking about the middle-class people that live in this country that seem to be the ones that pay for government. They're the ones that are affected the most by the taxes. They're the ones that are affected the most by the programs the state or any governmental unit get involved in. They pay the tab for it. They have just about reached the point where they can't afford anymore.
This is Bob Bino's first round in the political arena. The Republican candidate says that unlike his opponent, he has no ties to any special interest group. He was speaking of the campaign contribution Dixon supposedly received from the Alabama Farm Bureau Federation. Bino, a practicing attorney, believes District 81 is truly a Republican district and will prove it if given an alternative.
And if the Republicans in that district would speak up and let their voice be heard, we could have a Republican in the legislature. Without that voice, they find themselves back in the same situation and waiting for the presidential election in 1980 or 1984 or whenever, 1982, and they keep saying, well, my golly, how come we can't have a Republican voice coming from the state of Alabama? And the reason is, you know and I know that if you are a Democrat, you are obligated to vote Democratic.
Janet May, WSFA TV News.
We have a great deal to do. We are a little bit behind schedule, and we are going to recess. You will recess your individual committee at 12:40. Round of applause. No further
here to us. The debate, I think, that is beginning to take place and will accelerate as the months go by.
Committee at 12:45 and come to the lunch.
The debate, I think, that is beginning to take place and will accelerate as the months go by is this. Should we have strings attached to that program? And two, should we demand of states and cities some reforms for this largesse that the federal government is providing? Those are questions that came up in 1972 when it was passed. They came up in 1976 when the program was extended. The ability of the opponents of the counter-cyclical program this past year to defeat that program rested in large part on their likening that program to general revenue sharing.
Although most consumers will find this hard to believe, food prices consume only 18% of an average family's take-home pay, falling in third place behind shelter and transportation. And this figure is approximately 7% less than a few years ago. This month, South Alabama had the highest market basket price of $22.25, Northwest Alabama $21.49, Central Alabama $21.39, and Northeast Alabama $21.14. Even though food prices overall have declined, dairy prices will continue to increase due to the recent price increase granted by the Alabama Dairy Commission.
Of course, we have other problems in the small increase in dairy prices, but overall we've had a 2.8 decrease.
Why are we seeing the decrease in poultry and beef?
Well, let's take them one at a time. The beef prices have decreased basically because during the past year and a half, 2 years, the industry has been in a liquidation phase. We've got a lot of beef right now in the feedlots. This is a rather temporary decrease. I would view it as a rather temporary decrease because the stock is not backed up with beef in the field, which in the past, of course, has resulted in a lot of low prices. So in the beef situation, you've got kind of a temporary lull in price increases. I think you'll see them increase later on. In poultry, we're more or less in a seasonal adjustment. As you probably know, around the Christmas, Thanksgiving period, there's a decrease in the demand for poultry. The producers have pulled off a little bit and aren't producing quite as many.
To keep food prices at a minimum, consumers should first buy foods which are as close to the raw agricultural product as possible and avoid processed and imported products. Janet May, WSFA TV News.
Today's graduates are about to take on what Public Safety Director M.L. Hilliard describes as a superhuman job, because these men are the first new state troopers in Alabama in 2 years. The reason, Colonel Hillier says, is because prior to this class, the legislature did not appropriate any money for state troopers. Hillier says these men will bring the total number of state troopers back to the 1966 level, still far short of the number of troopers he says are necessary to provide proper protection. But those problems will be taken up later. Today's ceremonies were to honor the new troopers and to award their diplomas for completing 17 weeks of rigorous training. And as part of the ceremony, they heard the keynote speaker, retired Major John Cloud, tell them what they could expect as a state trooper.
At times, you'll think some of the problems that you're confronted with are insurmountable. But during my 26 years with the department, I saw many of these same type, so-called insurmountable problems disappear, become resolved with very little effort on my part. Somehow, those problems are never insurmountable. I know something about the long hours, the sacrifice, the risk that you'll take, and the criticism that you'll encounter as a result of carrying out your duties.
Thank you, Constitution of the State of Alabama. The Constitution of the State of Alabama. So long as I continue a citizen thereof. So long as I continue a citizen thereof. And that I will faithfully and honestly. And I will faithfully and honestly. Discharge the duties of the office. Discharge the duties of the office. Upon which I am about to enter. Upon which I am about to enter. To the best of my ability. To the best of my ability. So help me God. So help me God.
The new state troopers begin their assignments on Monday, and the Alabama Criminal Justice Training Center will continue training other law enforcement officers. But officials say there won't be any more state troopers until the state legislature appropriates more funds. Glenda Webb, WSFA TV News, reporting from Selma.
Oscar, you ain't been out in Texas looking for any property, any place to live, have you?
Well, no, I talked to some writers, and they told me not to look. They said I might be getting traded to New York.
Would you like a trade like that?
Well, yes, like I played with New York before, and I know a lot of the ball players, so, I wouldn't be disappointed if I get traded over there.
How about the dimensions, let's say, of the Texas park and then the Yankees, and some of the dimensions of some of the parks you'll be playing in the American League as compared to that one out there in San Diego?
Well, the dimensions in Texas ballpark not that big, but the wind blow in a lot. And, like, from a left-hand batter, like, you have trouble hitting the ball out. The wind would pick it up, like a fly ball type. If you hit line drives, it won't bother you. And New York, like, it's, the smallest ballpark for left-hand hitters. And the one I just left is another Yellowstone, like, it was big, tall fences all the way around. So, I had trouble this year in the beginning of the year hitting home runs out there.
Do you think the stuff you took from the stands might have gotten in your head a little bit this year, too?
Well, I think so. Like the beginning of the year, I think that bothered me, and I hate to sit down one day and say I wasn't going to let that bother me, because you go out there and all I was hearing, was how much money I was making and stuff like that. And, they was throwing at me on the field, and I started hitting the ball, and a lot of that's changed.
The Snowden Volunteer Fire Department was out again today in force, but this time they were not washing cars to raise money. The men and women were fighting a forest fire just south of Sprague off Highway 331. The blaze reportedly started around noon today. Personnel from the Forestry Commission aided the Snowden units with water tank trucks and a bulldozer. The fire, which has burned about 240 acres, was contained after a fire break was dug around it. One of the firefighters, Ricky Whitehead, said the blaze was caused by a train.
All right, what really started the fire was a train come through down here at Sprague and set out Fuse E. We was down here on the railroad end. We tried to knock it out, and the wind come along real strong. And we had to send to the store to get the other fire truck. And we still hadn't got it all out yet. And it just was something, the wind had just blown so hard, it just burned about, say, 240 acres. And it just, trees and all just ruined. This is all timber for Sprague unit. Down here, the fire, what they use timber with, down here at Sprague. Were any homes in danger? Yes, sir. It was one house up here on the end. It just almost was fixing to go. The fire was just near to the house.
About the time firefighters were working to contain this blaze, Governor Wallace issued a no-burn order for Shelby County, where about 21,000 acres have been destroyed by wildfires. The lack of rain over the entire state has the danger of forest fires, such as the one at Snowden, very high. Earlier, 20 tons of hay went up in smoke at Snowden. Reporting from near Sprague in South Montgomery County, this is Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Well, the purpose is we want to test our articulating boom we commonly call a squirt. We haven't had a chance really to try it out at a large fire since we've had them. And we're going to try, we have 5-inch hose. We want to see what capacity water we can get, exactly what we can do with it while we got an opportunity on this building.
Now, what is this device you were talking about again?
The articulating boom, which is called a squirt.
Well, what does it do?
Well, it works like your arm, except it's got a huge nozzle on it. It produces up to 1,500 and maybe sometime more than that gallons per minute that you operate from the ground. You can stick it in various positions and places. And we're going to put it in that second floor window up there after that fire gets well in progress and try to see what we can do with it. So we're just going to test some procedures.
What plans have you made? What precautions have you taken to protect the buildings surrounding the one that you'll be practicing on today?
Well, I'm using one pumper down at this intersection as a water curtain. He'll have a deck gun trained up this street and also the other way. We'll have 2 deck guns with water curtains. The only exposures we have is some power lines, and we're going to cover those. And we're going to use number 6, which is the articulating boom, to come up to the front. We're going to let it get well involved, and then we're going to try to knock it down. We're going to control the burning. We're going to burn it, but I'm hoping that we can let this thing fall to the inside so that it won't fall into the street. We don't know just yet, but we're not going to take any chances.
Voters statewide will decide the fate of Amendment Number 3, which would keep cities from being locked into their charters with no way of changing. Passage of the amendment would allow cities caught in a crunch by a recent Supreme Court decision some relief. The amendment, a product of the Alabama League of Municipalities, has the support of Governor George Wallace. Unless the amendment is approved, the cities of Montgomery, Dothan, Birmingham, Anniston, and Phoenix City will be unable to change anything about their city governments. Mobile Commissioner Robert Doyle, president of the Alabama League, says the cities set up their governments by using general bills of local application, and the proposed amendment needs support.
Well, what it does, is it allows for a classification of cities based on population, not as it was, not in the way in which the general bill of local application were declared unconstitutional under the recent Supreme Court decision, but it lumps the cities into categories, allowing legislation applying to individual categories. The dilemma that some cities have found themselves in, as you mentioned, several cities, is that they are in a position where they cannot amend their charters. They are in more or less a status quo until they are given a vehicle by which they can act legally and legitimately and amend their charters if they want to amend them for any good and valid reason. So this is a bill which it's all positive. There seems to be no opposition to it. It's something that's will just remove an obstacle in the operation of city government.
The amendment, if it's not adopted, as things stand as they are now, what is the future for the government for the city of Dothan?
Well, of course, it'd go along like it is right now. We wouldn't be able to change anything. At the same time, if somebody decided that they wanted to challenge the act, say, that set the form of government up that we are now working under, then I guess if it carried all the way to the Supreme Court, that it would be thrown out. And that would certainly leave us in a chaotic situation as far as the government in Dothan.
The proposed amendment would allow the legislature to establish 8 categories of cities based on population. A bill relating to any one of the categories would be considered a general bill and would comply with the Supreme Court's decision. It's been pointed out by the mayors of cities and Governor George Wallace that the city of Montgomery, as an example, unless there is relief from the court decision, would be unable to even change meeting dates of the city council. George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Explain what a hike bike is.
Hike bike is a happening where participants come out and walk or ride to raise money to support programs for the mentally retarded.
And what are they doing?
They're riding bicycles, walking, riding skateboards, and pushing all different kind of carts around the perimeter road here at Eastdale Mall to raise funds to support programs for the mentally retarded.
Well, what's the object? They're going around and around, but what else are they doing?
They've gotten out and recruited sponsors to pledge so much for each mile that they complete in this program today.
Do you have any other competition, say, between some of the high schools or something within this meet?
The DECA chapters at the 4 area high schools are very much in competition to see who could raise the most money. The Civitan Club at the AUM campus has pledged $100 for one of their members to run the entire lap around the mall.
And what more specifically will this money go for?
It will go to the Alabama Association for Retarded Citizens to help in their efforts to secure better programs and more programs for the mentally retarded.